Okay, I'm back, and now we're at the point where we've got everything pretty much wired up. I have all the fuses pilled out because what I want to do is when we do our commencing, the first thing we want to do is we want to check the polarity of everything and the continuity of all of our conductors. And also we want to make sure we don't have any loads while we're trying to put this thing together. So I have the fuses for the combiner switch up above. Let me get those for you. And so one of the things you want to look at is you want to make sure that they meet your requirements. These are good for 125 volts DC. We're only going to be a little bit above 24, around 30, somewhere in that area. And so these are 10 amp fuses. I chose the 10 amp because both our loads are 10 amp, and also our charge controllers, you don't want to get over 10 amps on your charge controller. So that's one of the reasons for that. So that'll be good. And then these fuses down here that are going to be on our DC side, they're good for 125 volts DC also. And so, and these are 60s because they're coming out of our battery. So you take 24 volts, which is 5. So if we're pulling 10 amps, and you take 120 divided by 24, that's 5. So you got to multiply your load by 5, and so that'd be 50 amps. So 50 amps is actually what we're going to be pulling out of the batteries. So that's how that goes. So put those out of our way. I made up these cables, and we're going to be getting down to hooking up the batteries. And then before we actually turn the system on, we're going to have to put our grounding in. And so this is going to go down to the battery, and then this will go up to our box. Our battery is considered our energy source, so I'm going to take it to the top, which is considered our line. So you have what's called line and load, and so we're going to be doing it that way. So this is the positive one. I'm going to go up through our positive side. And I'm going to come over to our positive terminal. Did my 5 and 1. Loosen that up. Remember, I always like pushing them through before I strip them so I don't mess up the threads. Enough room here. I have to back it up. Yeah, it went in good. Push it around the side and tighten it up. And then I want our neutral can actually land on the neutral bus, okay? It's not going to come up here. Okay, so all that's done. I'm going to aim the camera now back down towards the batteries, and then we're going to look at what we've got there. Now, one of the things you want to make sure you do, the positive negative conductors, you want to keep them the same length. To get down here on the ground, dry off my face a little bit. Like I said, it's another warm day here in San Antonio, Texas. So one of the things we want to do, I have gone ahead and hooked this up and put my bar in here to make this a 24-volt system. And so what I like doing is I like using brass and not copper. Brass is a harder metal than copper, and it doesn't oxidize as bad as copper. So it's a good one to use for bonding your batteries together. I'm doing the negative to the positive, so this is called series. One of the things that's real nice are these guys. So if you're doing batteries, you can just drop this onto this post, and then you can put batteries easily in parallel. So if we had, two more of these batteries, we would want to use one of these so we could easily put them in parallel. Now I got my voltmeter, and I want to check the voltage on these batteries right now. And so this is going to be my negative terminal. This one back here is my positive. Well, I'm getting some. Oh, I put it on DC. So this is 24.53 volts. And so what we're going to do here in just a minute, we're going to hook this up, and then we're going to hook up the charge controllers, which are already hooked to the solar panels. We can go ahead and use the charging system, go ahead and just get this guy charged up, all right? One of the situations is I've got it so that even with this in the off position, I've got it wired so that the batteries are always charging, all right? This is only for the inverter and for the AC system. And then also, while we were gone, I'll show this here to you in a minute. I don't want this pump kicking on as soon as it gets energy, because it'll burn up. And so I added a switch, an on-off switch. I put it out on the board. And so that'll keep this from kicking on immediately from when it gets energy. So let's get these guys hooked up and see what happens. Hopefully we won't get any arcs. I like this wrench because positive and negative, two different sizes, and I can use this for both. Now one of the things I like to do is I like to just test it, just to be sure, be on the safe side. Look at that, I made a mistake already. This is why you don't put your fuses in. Thank you for the one out there that said, hey, you got the wrong ones. Negative goes here. So we'll see if we got polarity. We're in good shape. We still have to put this fuse in because we're breaking the charge to the battery. So one good thing. And then we'll go ahead. These are our fuses for up here at the top. We've got all this hooked up, so let's go back up to the top and see and go through our commissioning. So one of the good points I wanted to show you was the fuses weren't in, so we did not get power to any of these charge controllers. If I had that hooked up and had reverse polarity, we'd be buying new charge controllers right now. So now I'm going to get the fuses for the charge controllers. And we're just about ready to hook this up. So you don't ever want to be really touching this. These are touchless. You can just drop them in. And before we close them, we want to check our polarity. So this is our negatives. These are our positives. We're at 37 volts. 37.67 and 37.35, and both of them are positive, which means our polarity is correct. I'm going to reverse the polarity, and yes, now we have a negative. Okay, so our polarity is good, so I'm going to go ahead and flip these up and close them. All right, we got some lights that flashed. Now then, what we want to do is we want to turn on our batteries. But in order to turn on the batteries, I'm going to want to use a wrench. I don't want to be touching the fuses. So I'm going to use this channel lock. And usually you want to try to put them in so you can read what they are. All right, that's in there. I'm going to leave this other one here as a spare. And this particular will not work unless the door is shut. So I'm going to flip this up, cross our fingers, hope everything's good, all right? Oh, let me just check polarity one more time, just to be good. Measure twice, cut once. So we got 23 there coming in off the batteries. Should have the same. Oh, that's the one going over to our inverter. That's our battery. That's our neutral. .54. All right, so everything looks good. Everybody can see everybody. I'm going to close these doors just so nobody gets hurt. Flip the handle up. And we got a red light here on our battery status. So it's just a matter of waiting and seeing what's going to happen here. Check our solar. .25 coming in on the solar. 125 coming in on the solar, so we should be good. We just got to let, right now it said the batteries are red. It's trying to charge, which it's telling me that the batteries are low. It's then going to go to yellow, and then it's going to go over here. Our solar light is on, which means it's charging, and our solar light down here is on. You can barely see it. It's this one right here. So we're going to let this charge up, and that's why you want to get your batteries hooked up pretty quickly. So the next thing we got to do is we got to build our grounding system, because one thing you don't want to be is you don't want to be the ground. That's a lot of amperage right there. That's about 800 amps. And so even at 24 volts. So it's going to hurt, especially if you're wet. So this is going to be brutal, because now I'm going to have to move into the sunlight, and we're going to move the camera around to the other side. I'm going to show you how to build your grounding system to make sure all the equipment is bonded and grounded, and then also to make sure you're not the ground. So I'm going to turn this off and reset up the camera. Oh, here's my switch I added for the pump right here. I probably put a little label right here. It says pump. And this is the pressure pump. And our next video, as soon as we get this rod in, then we're going to move over to our vertical pumping system. We're going to get that vertical pumping system in, make sure we got water coming up out of it, and then we're going to switch over to our system and our horizontal pumping system, and then we're going to move over into water purification. Okay, I can't see me yet. Let me turn the video around. I keep forgetting to turn this monitor around so I can see it. It's awfully bright. Maybe I won't be able to see it. Okay, so I'm up on the ladder because this is a copper rod. It's 8 feet long. It's 5/8 inches of diameter. This is an impact driver, and so I'm going to drive this copper rod into the ground. It should go pretty quick unless I hit tree root, then we'll have to reposition and do it again. But this is what makes everything safe, is this one ground rod. So watch how fast it goes in. I can actually step off the ladder. I'm going to have to readjust the camera. Give me 2 seconds. That went down so fast. And then I have the actual grounding conductors that we'll be using. Oh, let me turn this around again. I keep forgetting my monitor. All right. So this guy right here is an acorn clamp, and this is what we're going to connect our grounding conductor to the ground rock. Here in the United States, we use the National Electric Code known as the NEC, and right now it's the year 2020, so it's the NEC 2020. It updates every 3 years. I'm going to call that good, and we'll put this grounding clamp on it. Let me go get my wire. So I have my wire. This is a 4-gauge bare copper, and that's what the NEC says we have to have as our ground. Hopefully you can see this. I know this guy's might be in the way. I'll slide this down to where you can see it. And then you just slide your conductor in there, tighten it up. And we're almost done with our power system so that we can power our wells. The next video that I'm going to be doing after this, I'm going to reposition the camera, and then I'm going to show you how we connect this up and show you why we have our bonding block on the other side. And we can move forward with our vertical water pumping. So let's just finalize up the electrical. Also, we'll check on the condition of our batteries. We'll look to see what the charge controllers are doing. And like I said, you want to let those batteries charge a good 2 days before you ever put a load on them. But that's pretty much it. I'm going to reposition the camera one more time, get back over to the other side of this board, and keep moving forward. Okay, so what we've got now, just making sure, I'm going to put my glasses on to make sure we're recording. Yes, we are. Okay, so now we're back here. We're on the front of the panel system, our electrical system. And charge controllers have moved from red to yellow, so the batteries are starting to charge. And that's what I'm talking about. You don't want to just hook up your batteries and just start using them. They've got to be 100% full in capacity because they'll remember where 100% is. So if you start using them at 80%, 80% is full. All right? So I added this metal adapter, and then this box right here is our grounding bus. So I'm going to bring this conductor up in here. This is called our grounding conductor. It is a number 4. And I'm going to take it all the way to the top. And we got a nice big port up here at the very top. I'm going to place it in there, and I'm going to tighten it down. So what this particular wire does, not only does it create your ground, but it also creates your neutrals. So now we have neutrals that are grounded. In the United States, our neutral is our grounding conductor. So you can't break your neutrals. And so this is where we bound our neutrals to our ground, and our ground forms our neutral. Now then, I'm going to cut a little piece of number 4. I'm going to run it up in here. This is called Klein's. It's a very good tool because of what it does. So one of the things I'm trying to show you, all the different tools that we use, is that it can take this number 4 and just bend it right over. I couldn't do that with my hand if I wanted to. And then you want to just come up, find a nice easy post to get onto. You don't want to use one that's already used. I'm going to go to this one. So this is a pretty big wire to get in there, number 4 bare. Oh, it's all the way in. And then I'm just going to tighten it up a little bit. I'm going to bend it around. Also, this guy has a wire cutter on it, so I can come in here, clip this, use this to bend it around. I'm going to go to the main port. This is going to be that one. Oops. Missed it. Alright, so we're now grounded, and this is now called a bonding block. Now then, this is all dangerous. It's all hot and everything in here. All these are hot. It's dangerous. It's not hot right now because I haven't flipped. Oh, I did flip that handle on. Oh, the inverter's not on, so it's not hot. So that's one of the things that we want to look at. So this has an on-off switch, which I haven't turned on yet. And so we could be able to power all this up and go forward with it. But what's nice about this bonding block is now we can bond all this equipment to this block, which takes us to that ground. Everything has the exact same impedance, and everything is grounded, and everything has a neutral. Now, what I'm going to do off camera, I'll go ahead and finish all the bonding and cleaning everything up, and then we'll get everything working. But now we're ready to start working on our vertical water pumping. We've got everything done. So I'm going to switch over to vertical water pumping from here, and I'll turn off this camera, and we'll regroup here in just a little bit. Did it again. Hang on. There we go. So, this is our well casing, and this scares me because this guy fits right on here. It almost wants to fall into the casing. So, I'm going to build an adapter to fix this and make it a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off a little bit shorter. We'll do that right now, and then we'll move over to the bench and we'll make that adapter. Now, I've got some helpers here. You may be able to see them in the film. They're not in the film just yet. They'll run as soon as I turn this on. Not exactly perfectly cut, but that's not going to be a problem, because we're going to put this fitting on there. Oh, no we're not. That's why we're having trouble. So this is a 4-inch adapter. So this isn't a 4-inch casing. So let me go find out what it is. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So, interesting thing happened. So, when the well was drilled, I told the driller to use 4-inch casing. And so, obviously, he must have had a whole bunch of 5-inch casing on his truck, because he decided he was going to use 5-inch casing. All the fittings I bought were for 4-inch casing. But luckily, he left me with this, and he left me with this. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to fix this situation. So I'm going to take this guy, I'm going to go take it to the shop, and I'm going to cut it down a little bit smaller, make it a little prettier, and then just cut it somewhere across here that actually fits really well on top of this 5-inch casing. So I could go like that and put it in. We'll cut it off right about here. And then what we're going to do, we're going to take this piece, I'm going to set it right there and get my pin out. Actually, it's a Sharpie. I love Sharpies. I'm sure in India you have plenty of Sharpies. And then I'm just going to draw a circle around here. And then I'm going to take this into the shop. And then I'm going to cut that hole out, drop this in, epoxy it into, I'm going to use epoxy, and then we're going to drop this guy right there like that. Now we'll have a real nice well head. So when people give you lemons, you got to make lemonade. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take this, it'll work just fine, and we'll be in good shape. And this is what happens all the time. You're on a remote site. You don't have material. The closest material is 2-4 hours away. You got to work with what you got. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to work with what we got, and we're going to make this work, even though somebody didn't follow instructions. The biggest thing, remember that, follow instructions. All right, so that's my 2 cents for right now, and we're going to make that work. Okay, so see you back here tomorrow morning, and tomorrow morning we're going to start dropping the actual pump, all the tubing for the piping coming up out of the water, coming up out of the well, bringing water up to the surface. We're going to get into this tank right here. We're going to start pumping water into that tank, and then once that tank gets full, then we'll be able to start pumping it all over the place. But that's what we're going to do. So take care. Thank you. You all have a good night. You always feel so good right now. It's probably 70, 78 degrees here in San Antonio, and a whole lot better than the 98 degrees that you saw me at earlier today. So see you tomorrow. All right, everybody, we're back, and we had talked about this right here. We're going to have to make a new cap for the well, because the driller used a 5-inch casing instead of a 4 like I had asked him. And so I showed you this. I cut this out. I made it so this can fit in here, and so that we don't have to keep messing with it, what I want to do is I'm going to epoxy it together. So I'm going to make some epoxy real quick, set this together, and while we're setting this together, this is our pump for our vertical pump for our water well, and then these are all the different parts that we have for it. That just fell over was an actual, still is. I'll show that to you here in a minute as we're going through. But that is a pump, a solar pump that can go down 1,200 feet and pump 10 to 12 gallons per minute. So it's a pretty heavy duty pump. So let me make up some epoxy. Let's get this thing going. Luckily it's fast setting. they got a good bond on there. A little sloppy. It doesn't have to be pretty. So this is our new well cap, and I'll show you the other one that actually came with the well pump here. And so this is the cap that came with the pump. It's got for the 1-inch hose, or 1-inch tubing. Let me get that for you. Try to do this without knocking over the camera. Give me 2 seconds. So I have both ends of the tubing that we're going to be putting in the well. One is going to come up through here, and then we have this fitting that's, well, this goes in the bottom. We have this fitting that's going to go here, and actually it goes this way, and then we attach our PVC pipe onto here, and we'll switch to PVC, which is going to be this fitting. All right, it'll be like that. So as soon as this dries and gets ready to, it's just, like I said, it's a fast-acting epoxy. Hopefully it'll act pretty quick for us, and then we can work on this thing. But right now I want to show you, we're going to go ahead and prep the pump end. This is the top end, so let's get the pump ready. So in United States, we're having a horrible time right now because of the pandemic. We can't get parts. And so all I wanted to do was go from 1 inch to a 1/2 inch. Wasn't going to happen. So in order to do that, I wound up having to get every one of these different parts. So let's put all this together. And to do that, I'm just going to show you, there's a lot of parts. So let's put this over to the side. Some room on the table. And this is each part. You're going to put them in order. So that we then can put this onto the pump. Also with the pump came with drop hooks and some other things. I have them all here somewhere. I just got to find where they are. Hopefully I'll be able to find everything. It's probably on that other table. And then we also have to know how to splice this and make it a watertight seal to our electrical wiring that's going to be going down inside the pump itself. So all this has to come up through here. We're going to have the drop cable on one side, and we're going to have our electrical connections on the other side. It all has to go together in a particular order. So, one time somebody showed me how to do this Teflon tape. So when you do the Teflon tape, you want it to be like this. And when you put it on, you want to put it on backwards. As you put it on backwards, it tightens. See how it automatically pulls itself tight as I'm trying to wrap it around my threads. Now I can add that to this piece. I'm going to tighten them all up here in a minute. I'm doing them loose right now. This would be my next piece. Remember, do it backwards. A lot of fittings just to go from 1 inch to a 1/2 inch. I apologize for that, but I'm not in charge of our supply chain here in the United States, which has completely fallen apart. There's a bee flying around my face just then. So on this one I got to do both ends. And I'm going to go ahead and start. We don't need this one yet. I'm going to go ahead and start with the very first one that goes into the pump itself, which is this piece. And I'm going to have to thread, oops, backwards. So I'm going to have to do this one, get it ready. Do this side and get it ready. I'm going to go ahead and screw this one. I'm going to bring the pump up here where everybody can see it. Go ahead and screw this into the pump and get started. Make sure that this is not covering the port. Now we're ready for our next piece, which I think is this one. And then this is our next piece that goes on top of that. This is our next piece that goes on top of that. And then we're ready for this guy right here. So this guy right here is how we connect the tubing to our pump. So this will be placed in and tightened up. So channel locks are real good for this type of work. So when we grab the channel lock, you can slide it to fit each one of these as a different size. You don't have to make them real tight. It's going to be submerged. Make it a little bit larger. So I'm using stainless steel and brass. They tend to work together pretty well. All right, everything's together. Now the instruction says to use 2 of these pipe clamps. Hose clamps, pipe clamps, whatever you want to call them. What I like to do is I like to put one on this way, then I like to put one on this way, so they oppose each other. They say to use 2, so if 2 is good, 3, if 2 is good, 3's got to be better. So I'm going to use 3. Got to get this cap out. And what I want to do is I want to get these fittings, one that way, one this way, and then one that way. Let the pump on its side. Here again, I'm trying to keep from knocking over the camera. Sometimes this gets hard because you got those barbs. You just got to work it in until it's all the way in. So bear with me a minute. It's warm out here, so let me clean up my face so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm just gonna pound it in. It's a lot of work. But it's going. Like I said, that was a lot of work. Trying not to knock over the camera. Give me a second. I lost one of my clamps. I'll be right back. It slid down the pipe. All right, get this back up here on the table. You can see how that's all the way down now. And so now I'm just going to tighten up these clamps. And I don't have my screwdriver. Oh, there it is. Give me 2 seconds. I'm going to set this down. Got my screwdriver. Now remember, this pump is pretty heavy. I'm going to say it's probably close to 20 pounds. So I'm going to tighten these up. One's on the back side. That's a wasp that's decided to be my best friend. So what's nice about these 5-in-1 tools, you can take that out, and now it becomes a driver. Oh, our epoxy's almost dry. So with that as a driver, you can just turn it and really make these tight. All right, I don't think that's going to go anywhere. All right, now then, we're ready to make our watertight connections. I'm going to stop the camera for a second because I'm going to have to retool and get the wire over here that's on the spool. And now that this is almost dry and ready to go, we can start putting all this, the other opposite end together. So, that's what it looks like. It's fairly heavy, but it's together. Okay, so we're back and we're filming again. This is our casing now. I put it on the chop saw. I cleaned it up real good. Hopefully you can see that in the film. I think you can. I've added this little piece right here. We got to have something to hook our drop cord to. And so you'll see I'll have a loop for my hand, and then I'll have another loop that hooks onto here. So I'll be able to loop with my hand to pull the drop cord up or down, whatever I need to do, and then be able to hook it on here. So, what's the first thing we talked about? Purifying your well. So these are all different types. This is a liquid chlorine. This is a super concentrated powder chlorine. And then these are 3-inch tablets, which easily should drop down the well. You gotta be careful. I would use 1 inch, not 3-inch. 3-inch has a chance of maybe getting caught or stuck as it's going down the well. I got an ant biting me right now. So basically you cut this off. You find a knife or something. I'm going to cut this open. I like these because they're nice, convenient pack. Just pour the whole thing down the well. Yeah, your water's going to taste funny for a while, but it's going to go up into this tank, and then it's going to be purified in the tank. So heat will dissipate this chlorine. So this is basically a high shock powder chlorine. And I'm just pouring it in the well. Pretty potent. All right, so that will take care. The reason I'm doing that is because my driller already didn't know how to follow instructions, so he didn't give me the casing I wanted. He probably didn't purify his drill bit like I asked him to, and so I'm going to not take any chances with this guy because he already doesn't know how to follow instructions. And so one of the things you want to learn is how to follow instructions. So I'm going to hurry up and get out of the sunlight. I'm going to show you my setup. So I use 2 ladders. I've got a pipe going between them. I've got my electrical cord, which now will easily spin out, and it can go down the well. And then I also have my drop cord right here, which can spin out and go down the well. And so what we have to do now is we got to take this guy. We'll go ahead and start pulling it over here. We're going to have to take this, which is a red, black, and green, which matches up with our pump, which is red, black, and green. And so now we have to make a waterproof connection. And so we have different types of splice kits here that I'm going to show you. And then we have also shrink wrap, which is made for this particular situation. And you can buy all different kinds of splice kits with shrink wrap already in them. And any well supply will have it. But that's what we're getting ready to do next. So we're going to need this and this. And I'm going to turn off the camera just for a second so I can put the pump up on the table and readjust the camera so you all can see how we do these splices. Got a lot of stuff in the way. Okay, so now we're ready for our next step. Our next step is to connect these wires from the pump. Can you see the pump? Aim it down just a little bit. You can do that without breaking it. Hang on. There we go. Okay, so here's our pump, and these are all the wires. So we got to get these wires connected to here, and we got to do it in a watertight connection. So the pump manufacturer sent us these, which we can use. And I was thinking there was a bigger one in here. And then at the supply house, yeah, here's the bigger one. So one of the things you got to worry about, even your own hands, the heat off your own hands will cause this to shrink. So you got to be real careful on how much you handle these. So when you try to put them on these different wires and splice them down, this has been out in the sun, so it's hot. This guy will fit in there, but it's going to start shrinking immediately. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and splice this up so that we can get these things going. I'm going to use my utility knife and just going to splice this open. You got to be careful that you don't splice your wires. I'm going to splice that down, and then I'm going to pop the wires out so I can get different ones out of here. And then it's real easy to damage your wires by trying to cut this off, so I like actually just using scissors. All right, let's see how big our splice kit is. So our splice kit is that big, we can go halfway, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and splice this down a little bit more. That was my fingernail bending backwards. Careful not to damage the insulation. So I'm using the scissors to trim these up. Now then, I want to look at the splices they've given us. Remember what I talk about? Waste management, trash management? Look at all the trash. This actually has instructions that shows you how to do these splices, but I've done so many, I kind of know what I'm doing. I think I do. Yeah, it's pretty bad when you start saying you know what you're doing, because most of the times you don't. So these splices aren't very big at all. So I don't need to take hardly any insulation off of these. And I'm going to use my cable cutters because they're super sharp. And I'm going to use two different crimps, or crimpers. I'm going to use one crimp. The crimp that came with the... So this just goes on. This is a number 10 conductor. Use this one to get it going. Get all three started so I don't lose them. And then this actually has a pretty powerful crimper on it. You can get a lot more weight with this one. Just going to come back one more time, hit each one of these with the heavier crimp, and call it good. All right, pull on them, make sure they're tight. We want to do the same thing here. But what we want to do here, we want to put these on here first. These are our shrink wrap. You can put a piece of shrink wrap on each one of these. And then now we're going to go ahead and put the big piece of shrink wrap on this particular wire. Heat and friction are your enemies right now, okay? So all our shrink wrap's in place, and you notice I've got a torch. So we're gonna have to torch this thing up. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim these up just a little bit more. I'm gonna go ahead and just cut them, and then cut them all the same length. So I'm not fighting it. And now I'm gonna trim them the length I need. Okay, now I'm ready to make my final butt splices with these guys right here. So you want to match up your colors, green to green. green to green. I have a hard time keeping my head in here. It's more important that you see my hands than my face. That one's crimped good. I'm gonna do red's our next one. Put my glasses back on. I can't see to get the wire in the hole. Make sure you can see what I'm doing. Come on. And then black is our last one. Got to keep my hands out of the way. All right. Pull on them. Ah, see, that didn't work well. I didn't use my second crimper. Get that back in there. Make sure I use this crimper on all of them before I try pulling on them again. And the shrink wrap kind of helps hold them all together too. Okay, now they're stuck together pretty good. All right, so now what you want to do is you want to slide your shrink wrap up and in place. And you see it's pretty much right on halfway. And I'm going to do these one at a time. So I'm going to use my torch. Make sure all these other shrink wraps are away from the heat. Keep that flame moving. All right, gonna let that one cool a little bit before I try to move the next one into place. Give me a second, I'm gonna go get a drink of water, I'll be right back. All right, now we're ready for the next one. Still pretty warm. Slide the next one in place. And then we're going to shrink wrap it. You use heat. And you can use a heat gun, I just don't happen to have one. But I do have a torch. And the shrink wrap has a gel inside of it. You can see that gel oozing out right there. That lets you know you got a good solid contact. It's still a little weak down here in the bottoms. All right, I'm gonna let that cool a little bit before I do the next one. I'm gonna get another glass of water and I'll be right back. All right, so now we're going to do the last one. Same thing. Torch. They're kind of worn. They all look pretty good. They're all nice and tight and everything. And now we're going to do the large one, which goes over all of this and then shrinks it all together and helps create that watertight seal. And what's kind of interesting about this when it's down in the well, I've had several of these leak, but it still didn't seem to affect the output of the well. I'm sure it can if it shorts out, but it didn't seem to short out for some reason. But anyway, I'm going to let this cool just a little bit. I'm going to hit it one more time with the torch, just to be on the safe side. This one down here doesn't not happy with that red one yet, and so keep the torch moving. There it goes. Now it's oozing out. It's oozing out really good on that gel. You see it right there? And that's important. Got to make sure that gel comes out. Now I'm going to let that cool, because if I try to slide this main one over these guys, and if it's warm, which it kind of is, it's going to shrink up before I can even get it over them. So I'm just going to let that cool a little bit, and I'm going to show you some other things. This is our cap that we made, and this will be the actual well cap. It now fits on there really, really well. You get that? The well cap fits well. And so we're going to put that right there. It has a place for the wire. It has a place for the drop cord. It has a place for our suction pipe, which will be right here through the center. And another little device you may want to look at using. I didn't want to put it on this particular pump because I don't think it's not that strong. But this is called a backflow preventer. And so a lot of pumps, you don't want the water to go all the way back into the pump, and then the pump has to pump that water all the way back up. So a lot of times you can put a backflow preventer right here at this location, and the water will pump all the way up to the tank, and because of the backflow preventers there, the water is still in the pipe all the way to the tank. And so but sometimes, like on this one, that's a lot of weight to try to start the pump. And so when you start the pump, you don't want to have a whole bunch of weight. And also I added, I don't know if you can see it, let me turn it around this way. I don't have that on tight yet. So I need to tighten that one. But I've added, of course now I've added this hook right here that we're going to tie the drop cord to. And you're going to tie the drop cord just like you would tie tighten all these up real good. And before we drop it down in there, we just retighten these to be sure. But we have this cable on here, and as we're dropping the cable, we want to use tape. We want to keep it taped to the tube, to our pipe. So we're going to be taping it as we drop it in. I'll show you that here in just a minute. That's still pretty warm. And so we got a lot of these different fittings to go. And when we start, we're going to start dropping this in here in a minute, and I'll turn the camera off and then we'll go back over there. But I want to finish up this waterproofing of these electrical connections, because it's very important that you get this and you get it right. It's going to shrink up on me before I can get this on there. Okay, so I got the main one on. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to heat it up and shrink it into place. I'm going to heat both sides. Keep it moving. Keep that torch moving. Ow! Got my finger. Look how nice and tight that is. Looks pretty good. All right, so we're about ready to start. Let me get some electrical tape. Going to go ahead, you want to leave it a little loose on the very first one. I'm going to go ahead and put some electrical tape here, and then that'll start our first piece of tape. And then before I start dropping it down, I'm going to bring the drop cable over, and we'll tie it up while we're here in the shade. Do as much as we can, because once we move over to that pipe and we start dropping this down, the casing, it's going to be hot because we're going to be in the sunlight. You just take some electrical tape, and you don't have to do this very often, about every 10 feet or so. Let me get that drop cable. Trying to get around all of our tent structure. So here's the drop cable, just goes in, and I kind of like doing it like you would if you're doing a fishing line. Putting the fishing line on a hook. Look at it. It's not coming off. I don't know if you guys know how to fish. And then always bring this back up, and then I like going ahead, so I did 3 knots, and then I'm going to go ahead and put this on here. And what I'm doing is just wrapping electrical tape around it. And that's just kind of hold it in place. It keeps it also from unraveling. And so I'm just going to go ahead and see if I can tighten this up just a little bit more. Adjust it down a little bit. All right. So this guy's in pretty good shape. We got a watertight connector right here. I'm going to go ahead and throw another piece of tape, electrical tape right here, just to keep it from moving. I don't want these connectors moving around. All right, so there's our watertight connection. Here's our pump. Here's all our fittings. We're hooked onto the hose real good. I'm not thinking that's coming undone. Check all your connections one more time, because once this thing goes down the hole, you're not getting it back. Just tighten these up just a little bit more. Oh, that one had plenty go. Okay, so I'm going to move the camera over to the casing, and we're going to drop this thing down the casing. Alrighty? Alright, now we're ready for what we're all ready for. This is what we've been expecting. So what I do is I pull this over, try to get off all my cords, just start dropping this guy down the hole. Now, it's going to want to go down. It's going to want to go down real fast. So before I get some more pipe in there, I want to go ahead and get my electrical tape so I'm ready to go. So we're going to leave this loose. In fact, I'm going to try to get it over here out of the way. And then as we're dropping this down into the well, now you'll see why I like using tubing versus pipe, rigid pipe. Do that. All right, start sliding it down. Our drop cable's going with it, and we're in good shape. I'll put another piece of tape on here. You know, it doesn't need to be tight. It just needs to be put on. And we're going to do this the whole length of this well. So I'm going to pull out some more wire. Make sure my safety cord's in place. And we just keep dropping it down the well. It's real easy. I mean, its own weight will pull it down into the well. And what's interesting is it gets heavier and heavier. This is probably about 60 to 80 pounds on the wire. This guy right here is probably another 50 pounds. And so, plus the 20 pounds we already had, so 50, 60, we're close to 150 pounds probably. It just keeps going. Like I said, its own weight is pulling it down pretty good right now. Pull the wire out. Drop cables intact. Everything's going down good. Just hope I don't hit the camera with the cable or the piping. You can see my drop cable. You can see my electrical cable. Everything's working good. You gotta be careful not to pull this over my A-frame, my spooler. Oh, I wanted to show you one other thing. So, this is a pretty heavy-duty pump. This is a solar pump. It's made by who makes this? I can't remember. But anyway. These guys make a lot of pumps, and this one is made for 1,200 feet, and it can do 12 gallons per minute at 1,200 feet. That's pretty good. So this is another option. I told you I'd show you some other ones as we're going. Put that back there. I'm using it to help ballast my A-frame. Man, you can really smell that chlorine coming up out of this well. Alright, so I'm going to just keep dropping. And I hope I have enough drop line. My drop line's starting to drop on its own, just from its own weight. Oh, forgot. Thanks for reminding me. I heard you. Now you can splice your drop cable without any trouble. You do the same thing that we did. You do the same kind of knot, because We may have to slice this if it's not the full 200 feet. Okay, now I'm just one person, remember that. I'm dropping all this down the pipe by myself. When it gets towards the end, it gets a little harder for me to hold it by myself. It's where that drop cable is going to come in, and this little bolt down here is going to come in real handy. And then what we're going to have to do, I'm going to show you how we got to build the well cap. Pull out your wire, pull out your cord, just keep going. Looking to see if I can see the end of the pipe yet. But we still have to put the well cap on the end of the pipe as we go to set this in to the well and finalize it up. That's where it gets kind of, hopefully I won't drop this thing down the well. Alright, now it's starting to slide pretty good. It's starting to get some good weight to it. May have to go get my son to help me. My son's 10 years old, but he's actually pretty good. See, it's going down on its own now. So, let me go get some help. I don't want to take any chances at this point. I'm going to go ahead and tie this off. Even its own weight is pulling it down. Let me put a boat knot in there. I'll be right back. I'm going to go get my son to help me.